Well, hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to the channel, as always, whether you're a newbie or whether you've been here before. Of course, I appreciate the fact that you actually will stop in and take a look. Just a reminder with all of my videos, and today, of course, we're going to be talking about Azurite. I do put timing chapters in the description so you can jump from place to place. And this is because I recognise not everybody is interested in all of the information that I'm going to provide. And of course, time is, it's precious to all of us. We've got limited time, haven't we? So we want to make the most of that. Just a reminder too that anything that I put on here, especially when it comes to the healing properties and that, you wouldn't disengage from your treating doctor or whoever when you use crystals. They do carry properties. Some of us believe that. Obviously, I believe that. So these are my opinions and thoughts. And where I'm presenting to you the information that I've been given by other people, of course, I'm going to outline that to you. But without any more ado, let us jump in straight into the content for today. So obviously, because I put the images on the front of these videos, you should have a bit of an idea about what Azurite looks like already, and the amazing colour that it's got. But the first thing about Azurite is actually it comes in a whole range of forms, and we're going to look at those in a little while. But what seems to be the overall rule of Azurite is this amazing royal blue indigo-ish type colour. It is just absolutely stunning, and it does come in the crystal form or the more solid form. But I must admit, with the images here, I've put them here because obviously I've posted them from other websites. But the other thing is the one that has got the circles on it. This is new to me. I actually didn't realise that Azurite came in that form because it's not something that I've actually seen, but it makes sense to me. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely stunning. So it can be more solid. To summarise, it can be crystal. Apparently, what I did learn too when I was doing my research on this was that it got its name from, this is one of the claims, it got its name from the Persian word laswad. I think that's how you pronounce it. Excuse me if I've got it wrong. Now, apparently that word means blue. Well, I can tell you, somebody's telling fibs is where I'm going, is because I did a Google Translate, and where laswad is said to be the Persian for lapis, that's actually not correct. What I saw when I typed that into the Google Translate is Azurite, or laswad is actually the name for lapis lazuli, which is a totally different crystal to, which I haven't done a video on lapis yet, but I will do. But when you sit lapis next to Azurite, you'll see that they actually really don't have any great similarities beyond the fact that a good piece of lapis is going to have this stunning blue colour to it as well. But it's going to have different colours in it, but we'll talk about that when we talk about lapis. In the meantime, let's crack on with this for today. There's that saying, make hay while the sun shines. And speaking of sun, well, that's applicable to me because if you're new to the channel, you won't know. Quite often my little pumpy dog comes thumping around and chewing on his squeaky toys. Well, he's actually killed most of them. Most of them aren't squeaking anymore. But either way, speaking of sun signs, okay, when we talk about crystals, they are all are linked to some extent and promoted to people of various sun signs. Now, I always say I don't know how they reach these conclusions. Sometimes it's very obvious to me, other times not so much. So this is information that's been given to me that I've found along the way. But Azurite is supposed to be particularly beneficial to people of the Aquarius, Capricorn and Sagittarius sun signs. Now, as always, I always say too, just because it's got it up there doesn't mean that it's not going to benefit people who have a different ruling sun sign or whatever. If you are drawn to a crystal, and particularly if you have the opportunity to get into a retail shop and hold the crystal and you feel it vibrate in your hand or you feel drawn to it, then this is the crystal you need to take home for today. I cannot explain why it's supposed to be recommended towards people of this star sign. But anyway, moving on. From a summary of the metaphysical attributes, I think it's fairly obvious if you actually know anything about the chakras and even colour healing properties, that when we talk about Azurite, it carries protective qualities to it. enhances your vision. If you are confused by what you see, or if you're not looking at your problems in a rational way where you're trying to solve problems, but your decision making is clouded by your emotions, well, then Azurite is said to enhance the clarity of vision, to actually calm you down, to be able to rationalize and work through your problems. Now, that also is tied in with communication if we're talking on a practical level, because once we can identify a problem, there's usually a resolution there that involves speaking with somebody as part of problem solving, communicating what the problem is and looking at potential outcomes. But also remember, what happens on one plane, whether it's mind, body, or spirit, also happens on the other. So when we talk about Azurite, we're also talking about the capacity to link and hook into our psychic gifts and our intuition, because it's associated with the brow and the throat chakra. And I probably should have left that until we get to the chakra slide. However, we've jumped ahead. So it's also associated with healing. As I said, we've got the protective elements there. So if somebody's aura required extra shielding or whatever, then we would use Azurite. But we're going to go into these properties in greater detail once we go onto the slides for the mind, body, and spirit. Now, as a rule, I guess, if you're anything like me, when it comes to collecting our crystals, we actually collect them because they look appealing to us, and because, if we're into the metaphysical properties, it's because it feels right to us to buy for some reason. But the geo important, or the mineral information, is actually important for when we do our purchasing, especially if we're buying online and not from a reputable retailer. And when I say not reputable, for example, in the town that I live, there's a number of different retailers or wholesalers or whatever, but only a handful of these are actually geologists or gemologists, or got that formal qualification where they can look at a crystal and identify it. And for the rest of us, unless we're buying from them, then we're kind of going on a hunch, I guess. So it's important to know the mineral information when we're buying from a new seller, I guess. So the idea is to understand whether or not what we're buying is real and authentic. There's a couple of key points. One is the hardness. Well, actually, the first thing is the color. Okay, the Azurite can come in this azure blue color, just the bluish. It's always blue. Okay. But I believe the depth of the blue is what creates the value for those people that aren't into the metaphysical. It gets its high price because it's pretty pricey to buy. The bluer it is, and if it's got the crystals to it. So when we talk about, you saw in the previous image as well, that sometimes it is transparent and sometimes it's not. But either way, it's a fairly soft crystal and it's going to break fairly easily. And it's got different formations, and I've put these on an image on the next slide if you want to jump ahead. But just a couple of the basic things, if you are doing the buying, is that it's typically found in what is referred to as prismatic crystals of this really deep azure blue, and it has vitreous faces. What is it? I've got this written in my notes because clearly this is not the kind of stuff that I remember. And if I'm buying, I have to go back and look at this kind of information to make sure that what I'm buying is the real deal. But either way, it's pseudomorphs, whatever that word means is. But a lot of people haven't necessarily seen Azurite as in the pure Azurite, because it's quite often found with malachite. So you might have the Azurite with malachite type crystal, which is still incidentally absolutely stunning. With the geodes though, which of course what you saw on the front page of the video, that is a geode. It's got the for want of professional descriptions, it's got the crusty on the outside and then the beautiful crystals on the inside. And they are found apparently in various locations around the world. If I recall correctly, when I created that image, because obviously I took images upon images for that, my understanding is that Russia is a primary source of the Azurite geode. And there is mine site, so it helps to know where they're actually mined from. I'm not even going to try and pronounce these names. I just have such a heavy Australian accent. But okay, right up the top, we've got Russia. There is a deposit there of the geodes. In Morocco, you've got that's a major source of the geodes. And the Moroccan ones are known actually for their very large size and because they have the beautiful crystals inside of them. And we're talking about those deep blue, transparent type crystals. Mexico is supposed to be another significant source. And has high quality specimens with well-formed crystals. This is all important for the Azurite buyers, I guess. And the US has a number of different locations, including Arizona and Utah. But these specimens from those areas tend to be smaller than the ones found elsewhere. Then there's another mine, the Chessy mine in France. That used to be a major source. It's now closed down. I can't remember when it closed down, but it closed down some time ago. But if you manage to get specimens from there, I think you would be a very lucky person. And I say lucky because if you look at these images here, and what I'm trying to do is give you images of the types of crystals that are found at certain locations. And here we have that French one, which has got almost the flower in it. It is a geode type thing, I think, looking at that. It's got a couple of cracks in the middle. But it looks so much different to the rest of them, don't you think? The French one just has this range of colours to it. And so this is why I would imagine that if somebody was lucky enough to own one of those specimens, it probably would be worth a fortune. I mean, if they managed to find it themselves, without having to pay for it, if they were a prospector, goodness me, they'd make a smashing on the market, I think. What I think most of us are used to looking at and seeing, certainly I'm speaking for myself here, is actually the image on the bottom left-hand side, which is an Azurite rosette. And then if you look at the one from Namibia, which is top right, that one also is the type that I'm familiar with when we talk about looking at crystals in the rough. However, I wasn't aware that it came in the shape that the Congo rough does. And let's be real, when we talk about Azurite deposits, and I'm sure there's going to be a geo out there that will correct me, just because I've got images here saying this is what you find in France doesn't mean that they don't actually have like the geodes or the rosettes. I'm not fully familiar with that, but it would be something that would be worth taking a look at. But yeah, once you look at this, if you see something online that you're thinking of purchasing, or you go into a retail shop and you see something there and you think that's a really beautiful crystal, I'd like to have it, and the person says to you, well, it's Azurite, you can look at it and then determine, well, could you tell me what mine site it's from, please? It doesn't look familiar to me. It doesn't look like what I envisage Azurite to look like. And a reputable seller will be able to tell you where they sourced it from. And then you can take a look at the Azurite or the mineral that comes from that specific location and establish whether or not it's good quality or poor quality or whatever. I included that crystal from Namibia simply because it looks completely and utterly different to me. And I've included this image here because, when we looked at the other images, we didn't see anything like that. Now, this is an authentic piece of Azurite, and I've put the photo credits on here for you so that you know there's copyright conditions to it as well. But when you look at this, the depth of the colour and the shape, the formation, once again, it's not like something I have ever seen. So if you were lucky enough to see something like this, you would know that you'd be expecting to pay quite a bit for it. I do think, by the way, while it doesn't say the dimensions of this particular crystal, it's probably not a big one, okay? It looks like it's fairly small. It's just the way they've taken the photograph. They have probably put it on some blue tack onto a stand because it is such a stunning crystal. And of course, when you're taking these kind of photographs as a display, you want to get in close. But I don't think it would be a big one, but I think it would be an expensive one. Now, I'm going to talk about fake Azurite because it does happen, okay? It's rare, apparently, to try and fake Azurite, but of course, they do. So the other thing too that I want to mention here is with the image on the left-hand side where I've got image A genuine, you can see that this is very different to all the other azurite specimens that we've looked at so far. It's got a lighter blue colour, so it's not as expensive. And this is quite often what we will find in the retail shops or when we're buying, and it's a perfectly good specimen. It would certainly be very suitable for use with your energy work. But it's also important to know, when it's being faked. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think that I would be sucked into either of these two fake specimens we've got here. But I thought it was worth mentioning because people obviously do. And I found these photographs in a forum where there was a discussion of how do you tell whether or not the crystal is fake, because they'd bought them. And apparently, so I did learn there's nothing, we always learn something when we start looking. What I did learn is that quite often these sellers are going to oil them. Now, I've pointed out in different videos that they will wet a crystal to make the colours come through, to enhance the colours if it's coloured crystal, because when rocks are wet, the colours show through better. So what I learned is there's another thing that they do, and this is oiling. They don't just wet them, they actually put oil on them to make them shinier. And when the buyer receives them, they feel a bit sticky and moist. And so what I saw as a recommendation from the geos is, because sometimes it can be a legitimate specimen, but it's oily and yucky. So a legitimate one, yes, you can put into some mild soapy water, give it a bit of a wash, get the grease off, and then dry it off. So that's one of the things that can happen. The faking of azurite will generally occur when it is mixed with malachite, apparently, such as when you're buying your beads. And the information is that real azurite, the really key indicator of identifying the genuine from the fraud, is that it has a deep blue colour. As I said, the deeper the blue, the more valuable it is. But it's also got a velvety appearance, and this is quite true. This is what I've seen in the rosettes, is it's not velvety, okay? Let's be real. If you touch velvet, it feels very soft and it's got a nice texture to it. When you touch a crystal that looks velvety, it doesn't have that tactile sensation. It simply looks velvety, okay? But when we talk about fake azurite, it can be a lighter blue. It can come even as a greenish blue. And I've got here, this website that I went to was Mindout. Now, I'm stumbling over my words today. I've mentioned Mindout a lot, and this is because it's a geological website where a lot of geologists go to and they answer a lot of questions. And what I found, as a response to these questions, is my azurite genuine? They keep saying, what you can do if you think it's a fake is you test it, right? You can test it yourself. Sometimes, not always. I mean, obviously you might want to take it to a specialist, but in this instance, you can see here with this middle photograph, I don't think it actually needed to be tested, because you can see they broke off a little bit and it's grey on the inside and it looks blue on the outside. But the geo said, test it, get an acetone, what's it called? Hang on, check my notes. So going through my notes, there's a couple of different ways you can actually test. My preferred option actually would be to just do what has happened in image B, which would be to, this is if you want to find out if your crystal has been painted or not, is you dip it into, say, acetone nail polish remover with a cotton tip, and then you rub that cotton tip over in this instance, the painted area, and what you see is the paint comes off onto the cotton bud, okay? Now, you wouldn't wipe it all over the crystal. You only need to do it on a part. If any of it comes off, it's not the real deal. The other test is the part that makes my hair stand on end, because I wouldn't feel qualified to actually do this. I would probably take it to somebody else to have it done, and that is where you break off a tiny piece of the crystal, because apparently azurite will dissolve in acid, okay? So apparently it's a muriatic acid, and you create a 10% solution. Sounding complex already, isn't it? And then you add a small droplet to the little bit that you broke off, and the azurite should start to dissolve. And but they do say don't include any of the matrix of the crystal when you're doing this kind of test, because that can sort of throw it off. But look, I think I'll let you actually do your Google on that and establish if you're comfortable to do the muriatic acid test on the pieces that you've got. I know that I wouldn't. But don't forget, if you do have a credible seller, or if you're fairly confident that the piece that you're purchasing, certainly from online, is legitimate, the next thing that you ask, of course, is well, how long is it? How wide is it? How high is it? And what are the freight costs? And what mine site did you get it from? Because that all is going to inform what you're prepared to pay for it, because it is obviously an expensive item. And what currency conversions are going on. As always, I always turn around and say to people, if you are buying online, just make sure it's almost like read the fine print. If the seller, so let's say you're buying a crystal of the Azurite, let's say it's Namibian or Russian or whatever, and it's being sold from Tasmania or Australia, then it may have been handled a number of times, and each time it's handled, the value goes up because each seller has to make a profit margin. So that's just a couple of tips there. So I've included this image because, to be quite honest, I saw that, I thought, you've got to be joking me, really? It looks completely fake to me, but hello, I'll do my due diligence, if you like. But there's no way I can tell you that I would be touching it with a 10-foot pole. Because I believe it's fake. If it's genuine, I apologise to people, but I didn't pursue this because I had no intention of buying it, all right? But the alarm bells for me is, one, the external of this. It's being marketed, so as Azurite, as an Azurite crystal, but that external surface is polished, and to me it looks a bit chrome. I know it's got light on it, but that is certainly not what I would expect from Azurite. The other thing is, it is as cheap as chips. Now, the currency wasn't displayed, okay? It wasn't easy for me to tell if it was being sold as US dollars or Euro dollars, but whether it is or isn't either of those, it is so cheap as to raise alarm bells, okay? Also, the online seller has a shop with multiple products, and it's not a dedicated crystal shop, but it does sell them. Or it has them for sale on their website. The other thing too is, in regard to this particular, I'm not even going to call it a specimen, there is no information about it at all, except that Azurite geode, really. Okay, the inside of it does look pretty velvety. I have to wonder if it is actually velvet or if it's that spray-on plasticky type stuff. And not only that, they don't say what the size of this specimen is. Like, hello? Would I buy it? Well, I've already said I wouldn't buy it as Azurite. Would I buy it for colour healing? Potentially, maybe, if I couldn't find anything better. Am I going to jump to the conclusions that the seller is a fraud? Oh, no, well, maybe. You know what I mean? I don't like to jump to conclusions. I'd like to think that the seller is unqualified and is just selling product that they have been told is X and Y, because they buy it from somewhere. If they're marketing it, they've got a manufacturer that's providing to them. And so potentially they're just marketing a product that looks pretty. It could be a good ornament. It might actually be great in a kid's bedroom, even if it's plastic, because it looks a bit plasticky to me. Different strokes for different folks. So we'll step into the metaphysical attributes now. When it comes to the spiritual attributes of Azurite, it's actually in fairly high demand because it's considered to be a crystal of spiritual rebirth. And when we talk about a spiritual rebirth, this is if you've been really bogged down in the darkness, the challenges of life, all those heavy emotions, grief, loss, mourning, anger, rage, those are weighty emotions. And when we have a rebirth, we're consciously choosing to live in the light, to re-experience the joy, the happiness, the love, that kind of thing. So it's associated with this spiritual rebirth and happier times. It is believed to clear, align, balance, and remove any blockages in the chakras and auras. It is said to enhance the person's capacity to communicate from their heart. That means speaking their truth and saying what they think and mean in loving ways. It stops this compromise or suppression of what's important to us. but it helps to articulate and verbalize what it is that we're hoping for. The other thing that it's said to do is actually expand a person's capacity to speak of their spiritual and psychic experiences, and for a person to feel safe doing so. Now, this is actually a really big challenge for those people that have developed their psychic gifts, because we still live in a world where people don't all have the same experience, and there is a level of, oh, well, that person's insane because they see spirit or they hear spirit or whatever. They belong in a psychiatric ward. So a lot of people actually shut down their experiences and gifts for fear of judgment or actions by other people. So basically, I would interpret the attributes of Azurite being one to say, feel safe, you are protected, you are divinely protected. It encourages a person to walk their life path, to follow their direction. And when we talk about psychic gifts and opening up to them, we're talking about not just the throat chakra, which is considered to be the channeling of spirit chakra, shall we say. Some people call it the seat of the soul. We're also talking about opening up the third eye, being able to hear clearly the voice of spirit, connect into the angels. There's actually another chakra. I'll talk about that on the chakra slide. But either way, to connect with these higher, lighter beings and to be able to hear and smell. I'll let you do your Googling on what all the clairs are, but I would expect that as you work with Azurite, that all of those clairs are going to start to open up. Now, a couple of points of interest for you is that do you pronounce it Mayans or Mayans? They used to use Azurite to actualize these psychic gifts and the intuitive aspects of life. And they used to do it in a form of meditation. So the information goes that I've got, that I accessed, that they do it through meditation of going into this void that we have, where you set aside your mind chatter. The Buddhists call it, I think, stilling the mind. So yeah, they used Azurite for that. It's considered to be a very sacred stone, I believe, for most, if not all, Native Americans. And it's also said to be very good for use as a pendulum. Okay. And to help you find your personal truth, should I talk about what personal truth is? Okay, personal truth is, something we all come to as we start opening up to our journey. And a prime example, I'll use the chakras for this. Okay, this is when I learned what a personal truth is and what it felt like for me. Is I was trying to understand the function of the chakras, and what I saw was people would say the orange chakra is about anger, or the yellow chakra is about power. And then you would go and look at somebody else who considers themselves to be a teacher, and there were variations to the information they were presenting. And there were some things that I would look at and think, well, no, I don't associate the yellow chakra with X, Y, or Z, although this person does. And then I realized, after doing my own reflection on what does that mean, is it about trust? Is it about power? Is it about hope? These kind of things. Then I was able to come to my own conclusions of what it was for me, what it means for me. And that can be, sometimes my personal truths are, everybody is actually right in their own way, because we're judgmental as humans. We go for what's right or what's wrong. Anyway, you reach this space where you go, that doesn't feel right for me, but I understand it feels right to that person. What I feel is right is X, Y, and Z, right? So that what I feel is right becomes my personal truth. But I also respect the person beside me and acknowledge that they are living what they feel is right for them. And sometimes we're all right. It's just that we work in different ways, if that makes sense. But anyway, that's kind of how personal truth works. So when it comes to the physical healing properties, of course, there is a huge range of health benefits that are attributed to Azurite. I'm sort of pausing as I think about how to express this, because we don't want to be making any large claims, shall we? So just a reminder of the disclaimer here as well, that if you have any of these conditions, you wouldn't disengage from your therapist. Feel free to, we'll look at the uses of it in a moment, but you could be carrying it on your person, you could be wearing with it, sleeping with it under your pillow, all of these kind of things. So it's said to facilitate recovery and good health if people have been struggling with disease and illness and recovering from. Other benefits are said to include the skeletal structure. That is, if people suffer from back problems, if there's issues with the vertebrae going out of alignment, it's supposed to benefit flexibility of the joints. That's the elbows, knees, and hips. If you've got pain there, it would be recommended that you work with Azurite. If you've got growths, I always find it a little disturbing, I must admit, when people make claims about cancer and the healing attributes of crystals. Perhaps I should do a story about why I have concerns about it. I've actually known a number of people that have disengaged from appropriate medical treatments and they've passed away early or done their transitions early. But then on the other hand, I've known people where there's been miracles as well. So I have no fixed opinion on it. I just wouldn't encourage people to disengage, okay? It's supposed to benefit people that have got gallbladder problems, and if there's gallstones or a history of it. When we talk about these kind of conditions, we're talking about a crystal that is supposed to help promote the health of the gallbladder and to protect against gallstones, if I can stop stumbling over my words. If a person's got a respiratory condition such as asthma, bronchitis, tendencies to collect flus and colds along the way, it's said to promote recovery, and I believe also to offer a level of protection or prevention against these conditions. If people have got skin conditions that are itchy, like allergic reactions, and if they've got things like chickenpox or to recover from chickenpox, Azurite would be recommended as well. We talked about the cryatal structure, and that of course includes muscles and ligaments. So it's attributed to be able to strengthen and repair the muscles as well if there's been an injury. And if people suffer from the muscle tics and spasms, it's supposed to help to manage and control those. I don't know how, probably relaxing those muscles. It's also apparently recommended for people with muscular dystrophy. So once again, I don't make any large claims of cures, but perhaps it helps eliminate some of the discomfort for those people. It's also considered to be a hormonal balancer and recommended for women who experience symptoms of menopause or feminine issues with the reproductive organs. There's a story about that I might tell you about another day. One of the things I find very, very interesting about Azurite is it's actually recommended for people who have side effects to antibiotics. A lot of people don't realise, those that don't have side effects or experience side effects don't realise that while antibiotics will actually treat an illness, that's what you want them for, it can often fix that problem but create discomfort in other parts of the body. For example, women with candida or things like that is a huge discomfort if they suffer from that. But then there's other people that can actually have massive allergic reactions to antibiotics. But, and what is that called? It's come into my head and gone out. I've got to pause for a moment. And of course, the moment I hit the pause button, I remember it's anaphylaxis. Okay, so for some people, they have anaphylaxis. And so therefore, Azurite would be recommended for those people that are recovering from the use of antibiotics and basically to restore the full health and balance. If somebody has anaphylaxis or an anaphylactic attack, can actually take a good day or two to recover from it. Other people that it's recommended for use is people who are artists, and I don't understand the substance with this one because it's not something I'm aware of. It's not something that I've been told by anybody. It's something I read online. It's supposed to be beneficial for those people that suffer from bulimia. Now, I just want to go back and touch on the women's stuff with Azurite and the fact that it's recommended for women experiencing symptoms of menopause and other issues. There's another crystal, and I've loaded it, it's already up, but it's actually red garnet. Red garnet is, I can speak from personal experience there, that I was not using red garnet to manage any symptoms. I was using it for focus and concentration when I was at university, and I became aware after the fact that I didn't have. I'm being a bit revealing here. I've been through menopause, but I went through it and I wasn't aware I was going through it because I didn't actually have any symptoms. So I was kind of diagnosed after the fact. And I think, well, that's an interesting coincidence, don't you think? That you can actually undergo something and not have any signs of it happening. There you go. So anyway, had I known about Azurite and its links, I probably, if I could afford it, would have had a piece. So it has a range of emotional and psychological mental attributes as well. And these include basically minimizing any aggressive tendencies. If you've got anxiety or other emotional disorders, it brings mood stability and balance. It helps a person to adapt, to be flexible in their approach to life, and that means going with change. When we're flexible, we retain a level of openness and a positive attitude about what the changes bring. Sometimes change is frightening, but at the same time, change leads to new beginnings. When it comes to problem identification and resolution, it helps for this clarity, to be able to see and understand the truth behind a situation that presents, because quite often when challenges surface for us, we don't understand why, or we might jump to conclusions and think that life is unfair or whatever, but we're able to see beneath the surface and recognize where there is actually blessings. That's that old saying of blessings seen and unseen. When we're caught up in that grief and sorrow and sadness, we don't actually see the blessings, I guess. So it helps us to look beneath the surface. It leads to a greater self-awareness, recognizing the limiting patterns of behavior, and to step into change, to make if we haven't made the changes yet, if change hasn't commenced, but we're locked into this deep, dark emotional experience, it helps to promote moving forward, making the decision to bring change into our life and to release resistance and just go through it, and to go through it in such a way that we feel safe and protected throughout this change. It offers a level of security to us as we take those actions. From mental health, I suppose I've mentioned that it does stabilize. You don't have to have a deep, dark disorder to receive the benefits from it, although it is recommended for people that have got psychiatric conditions or who are experiencing this really deep anguish and torment. It helps to soften and dissolve them. So I did allude to this on previous slides, that Azurite is actually connected to the throat chakra, to the brow chakra, and I would even say the crown chakra, because what we're talking about is a range of colours that are almost indigo. And just a reminder, it's actually Gary Zukov who refers to the throat chakra as the seat of the soul, and that capacity or the links with mediumship. That's communication with spirit. And it's also associated, the throat chakra is definitely associated with how we personally express and communicate with other people. The brow chakra, of course, particularly with Azurite, is this opening to the psychic gifts, and also this business of being able to clearly see, and to clearly see is it behind or below the surface. And I must add that in my experience, I'm being a bit revealing today, that sometimes being able to see beneath the surface actually means seeing past a person's actions, that where they might appear to be all kindness, light and love, but underneath they've got an ulterior motive. And when you can see past that, that can cause a little bit of cognitive dissonance within, a little bit of distress actually, because each of us, I think, certainly I'm speaking for myself here, we would like to think the best of the people that we encounter. And when we've got, I think they called it, I can't remember the term they used for it when I was studying mental health, a lack of cohesion. There's no cohesion between their actions and their mouth, and that can become very, very confusing for people. unless we can actually process. And that's where the crown chakra comes in, being able to process, being aware that this person is not all that they say that they are, and then being able to make proper decisions about how we're going to interact. Putting boundaries on the relationship, I guess, is what we would refer to as well. But it's certainly a very loving crystal as well. So there's a number of ways that you can actually use Azurite to actually leverage these gifts and attributes of Azurite. And, primarily because it's so expensive, you don't get it in really, well, not in my experience, you don't get it in really large forms. They're generally smaller. But even if you've got a smaller, say, rosette, you can use it in meditation, holding it. You can wear it on your person, either in your bra if you're one of those type of people. And you can wear it as a jewelry item. You can wear it as a talisman. There's all the regular things that you can do with Azurite or with any other mineral when you use them for healing. You can probably even put it in grids as well if that's your thing. I'm not sure if it's suitable for elixirs. I'd have to look into that. But either way, I put this image here as far as uses go, because it's actually a rather stunning, I must say, a stunning ring. I believe it's called bespoke when they're created like this. But as you can see, the price of this this item is just completely prohibitive to me. I put the website where I saw it, which is firstdibs.com, and it's a jewelry shop, okay? And they've got a lot of Azurite jewelry on there. When a jewelry item is made bespoke like this, the silver is carved and that kind of thing. It's certainly going to be very high quality, but if you were anything like me, I tend to be a little bit rough on rings and bracelets, and I don't think I would buy it even if I could afford it, even as much as it's stunning. But if you're the kind of person that remembers to take your rings off, where you treat them gently and all the rest of it, you might be more than happy to have an Azurite ring. So if you're new to the channel, you will know that when I talk about crystal messages or messengers, this is because I have a bowl of crystals that when I'm providing services to, I will actually ask somebody pop their hand into the bowl, close their eyes. It's kind of like a lucky dip, and see what crystal they pull out of the bowl. Other times, if it's a distance session, I'll act on their behalf and pull a crystal out. But either way, once the crystal has been selected, I then interpret that it's always going to be contextual to the person's situation and as guided. But from a general consensus, if a person were to pull out Azurite, it's basically a message to say, believe in yourself. You do have the capacity to overcome challenges. You do have the support of the whole entire team. You can relax if you've been feeling frightened. You can relax in the embrace of the divine. They've got your back. They've got you covered. You will need to follow your guidance if you are actually in a physically threatening situation. They will let you know when to get out of the way. Just pay attention to the signs. There are opportunities coming. You will be able to branch out, try new paths, and that you will be successful at whatever you put your hand to. However, you're going to have some confidence and to be able to trust this process to achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve, and to understand that even when we experience rejection during the process of manifestation, we just have to keep going and keep believing, because each time we're rejected, this strengthens our resolution to succeed and also strengthens our character, but we also have to be open to receive, and we have to be ready. And so that's where the conscious mind comes in, making that conscious decision to say, I am ready, I am prepared, and I will do, and I will do it well even. Everything that we experience in life is a learning experience. We always grow from it. Even those experiences that might be appear to be unhealthy or unhappy or whatever, once we move past it, it's through the eyes of reflection we can actually see the benefits that those experiences brought to us as part of expanding our own soul, that rebirth into the light, and our awareness and understanding of ourselves and how we react in certain situations. So this video has got very long. So suffice to say, I'm going to say, look, remember, there is a separate video on the channel on how to care for your crystals. Caring is not just about the metaphysical care or just about the physical care. The bottom line is all of our crystals are going to need to be cleaned at different times. And that's especially if we don't have them behind a glass wall or something like that where they're exposed to dust or people handle them. You'll want to clean off any grime or dirt or anything like that anyway. And then we also want to do the metaphysical cleansing and charging of them. Now, when it comes to the cleaning, I believe I have one Azurite rosette, and I know that does cope with water. I haven't done it as a water immersion. I've done it as washing it off. You know what I mean? Putting it under running water and then drying it off. It seems to cope okay with that. There's not been a problem. As far as putting it out, if we're doing the metaphysical recharging, by the way, if I ever use water, I actually do dry crystal off with a soft cloth. The other thing, actually, I should say crystal care. Just remember with Azurite, it's very soft. So it's going to be damaged if you put it next to harder crystals. And that can even include selenite. Selenite's one of my favorites. But if you've got a polished selenite, that's going to be fine to rest your Azurite off on if you need to do the cleansing and recharging. But I would be very mindful if it's not polished selenite, if it's just your straightforward log, because I've got some of those and they're a little bit rough on the texture, I would probably place the Azurite on a tissue on top of it to stop it being scratched, or I may even put a velvet or cotton cloth underneath the tumbles if I was going to use selenite in those situations. But generally speaking, if you don't have any selenite, you can do the place it out in the sun, place it in the dirt kind of thing to cleanse, recharge. I wouldn't, as always, and I'm going to say this, I don't put my crystals out in direct sunlight very often. I will do it from time to time, dependent on the crystal. I don't think that I would do it with Azurite. I have put it under filtered light on my back patio so that it can be exposed to the external environment. And that's just because in Australia our sun is so harsh. I would have no issue putting it under the full moon or any form of moon, actually. And I would have no issue actually putting it outside during a light shower of rain or whatever, and probably even a torrent of rain. I don't think that the birds would be attracted to Azurite because it's not glossy. Well, none of the pieces I have are, but mine are rough. So that might be it. If it's tumbled, it might be a different ball game. But anyway, if you've got any ideas, let us know. Let us know what you do with your Azurite. For now, though, it has been a very long video, and I do apologise for that, but I did include a lot of photographs, and that was part of helping you to attune your eye to looking at or to seeing what is the genuine Azurite, so that you can actually establish very easily when you're being ripped off. Certainly if you're buying online. But anyway, for now, I'm going to say thank you for being part of my journey. I'm going to love you, leave you. I'm going to say thank you to the universe that my little boy Toby was so quiet today. What a privilege and a blessing. I will catch you on the next video. Take care. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye for now.